Hi everybody, it's Jennifer. So this week what we want to do is we want to look at using a triad color scheme or 3 colors. So this week the 3 colors I'm going to use are cobalt blue, yellow ochre, and opera rose, and these are all Holbein colors. So we're going to try to also give you a glass demo, how to paint glass. And this is just a little flower in a glass vase that I'm going to try to do a demo of. So first thing I'm going to do is wet my brush, and I have already mixed a few things up on the palette, and when I use them I'll try to tell you. First thing I want to do is work with the flower itself and just go ahead and try to get that set. So the flower has a little bit of yellow in it. So I'm going to really water the yellow down. I don't want too much yellow in there. And I'm going to, again, we're going to work light to dark. So I'm going to go around this petal so it pops that one out. Oh, and there is an ant from my flower. And then same thing, I'm going to keep working around here in the lightest value. Now when it gets to the other side of the flower, oh, right here too, it's going to get a little darker. So over here I'll put a little bit more yellow. Okay, and then I want to work with the next value, and that happens to be in the center. I've got a little bit of that light yellow in the center. Okay, so for warm colors, that might be about it, other than the white that I'm going to leave on the paper for the flower. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up like blues. There was a really light blue. And then it kind of turns a little bit more purpley on this side, so I'm going to give it a minute. A little bit blue there. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of the purple. And the colors are much brighter on the top of the flower. So when I use a purple on the bottom, I'm going to make it a little bit more neutral. So I'm going to take a little bit of that same purple, but I'm going to add the complement, which is a little bit of yellow. Okay, and then some of these values get pretty dark in here, and they're more of a kind of gray, blue-purple. Put a little bit more blue in there. right, same thing. I'm just working around all of the parts of the flower and slowly building up the color. Put a little bit more blue in there. And really what you're doing is you're trying to define the petals when you're doing flowers, so I try to make sure I kind of skip around and make sure I define those. And I'm working on dry paper. I put a little yellow on that. And this part of the flower is pretty dark because it was in shadow. Now I'm just softening some of the edges. And I'm going to define this one, put a little bit more of that yellow on it. Make that a little bit more neutral. Okay, same thing over here. I'm just going around defining the petals now. I'm going to take a little bit of that color out. I'm going to put some water on the brush and I'm going to pull a highlight out on this petal. And then take my paper towel. I kind of lost that little edge. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and try to define that center. Okay, and I'm just lightening some of these little areas on this side of the flower. And I've just got water on the brush and I'm just removing some of that paint. You always want to have soft and hard edges in the painting, so you don't want all of your edges to always be soft. So I'm just going back through there and softening some of those edges. I'm going to take a little bit of a brighter yellow in here. I'm going to lift some of that back out so I just get a stain on it. Okay, so I think I needed to find that one, and then we're going to move on to the glass. So painting glass is, you just really want to make sure that you're painting what's underneath the glass or through the glass to make glass look like glass. That's the trick. Put a little bit of this color down here too. So in this case, the table is basically like Naples yellow. So I would take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of my mixed purple, and I would really water this down so it's really neutral and really light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around here . Okay, so I definitely want this to be the lighter part of the background, so I'll just take the brush, and I could even take a paper towel too if I felt like it was too dark. But I'm going to put a little bit extra color on this side because the light source is from left to right, so it's slightly darker on this side, and I can just float that color in. And you can see I'm going over the glass too. Okay, and at the bottom of the glass it'll be a little darker, the table color, so that's all I'm doing right now. I'm just setting this in here. The paper's really wet, so I have to keep tapping it. Okay, so while that is trying to set up a little bit so I can get in there without making a huge mess, I'm going to do this part of the glass right here. And it starts the same, but the color is going to be a little darker. And then on the other side, there's another little spot of that. Now I'm just going to hit that with a paper towel so it dries up enough that I can just do the next layer. Okay, so this happens to be like a little bit of a cut glass bowl, so it's got some detail in it. So I just put the dark on one side and then I lighten the other side with water. Now the edge right here, make sure it's dry enough. can see I put a lot of paper on there. I mean, a lot of water on there, and the paper is starting to buckle. That's why we stretch the paper. Okay, so it's like this weird purple color that's right around the edge here. So I'm going to take some of that purple color and I'm going to try to define the edge of the glass dish. So I'm taking color and going around both sides. The outside is a little lighter than the inside. So what I want to make sure is I don't cover up all the white, because there are some really nice little highlights in there that I don't want to lose. And there was a really pretty pop of blue on one of the edges. Take a little bit right there too. Okay, so now let's go ahead and finish up the bottom of the glass bowl. And it was not nearly as dark as the rim or the shadow. I'm going to get something a little darker, a little cooler. All right, and get that edge just a little darker, and I think we can move on to the shadow. Since it's cut glass, I can kind of just drop value in, but I want to keep my darkest color values on this side, and I'm going to lighten the other side just a little bit. And I'm going to blot out that top little area. And while I'm waiting for that to set just a little bit so I can do this bottom shadow, I'm going to go back into the flower and, you know, make any adjustments I want to make at this point. And I think I'm gonna make the background just a little darker. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just covering up some of those white spots. I just don't want to leave too many because the edge of the bowl was very dark. And then there was a dark right back here too. Okay, so let's do this bottom part. And the shadow was really pretty. It had a lot of, it was mainly purple, but it kind of rolled from pink to blue to gray. So I want to make sure I get a little bit of that opera rose in there. I'm gonna add a little bit more blue. And then I'm adding a little bit of yellow to make it a little bit more neutral, more in the gray side of the wheel. Now I'm just softening the edges. I want to make sure my shadows have soft edges. Right, now I need to get back in here and put a little bit more of that detail of the cut glass. Okay, so this gets me close enough for you guys to kind of get an idea of what's going on here. So mainly the most important thing is that you just keep working with the value. Make sure you get your values set. And with glass, make sure you're painting what's on the other side of the glass, so the same color you'll see through it. That'll help set it. So if I were to finish this piece, I would go back and maybe put one more round of darks. You can see that's what I'm kind of doing now, is setting the darks in the edges. So when you're at home, I would say right down here needs another dark too. So make sure when you're finished that you get a good set of light and darks all the way.